Hello, I'm Larry Meisel and welcome to Confidence on Camera, a channel for beginning YouTubers who want to overcome the shyness and the awkwardness that goes along with looking into a camera sitting in a quiet room by yourself, making it seem like you're having a pleasant conversation with 1,000 or so of your imaginary friends. In this video, I'm going to describe my version of a Gottman exercise called the aftermath of the fight. It's a process for talking about, and it's a process for processing. It's a process for processing and talking about what happened during the fight without getting back into a fight. Sound like a good idea? Here we go. Okay, the first step is to use the personality appreciation checklist that I've mentioned before. By the way, I'll have links to all of the resources in the description section of the video. So you do the appreciation exercise, a long list of positive personality traits that you say to each other. You take turns with, I appreciate that you are, and an example is when you, and that's important to me because, for instance, I appreciate that you are punctual because, and an example is whenever we have to go somewhere to visit some people, you're always ready to go and get us there at least 5 minutes ahead of schedule. And that's important to me because a long time ago, whenever my father had to take us to any kind of event, he was always late even getting started, let alone being there on time. So, and then you go back and forth with that. I appreciate that you are. And an example is when you. And that's important to me because the next stage is to then go through a list of negative, painful, unpleasant emotions. And each person, you look through the list and you identify 3 to 5 of these emotions, and you say, during the fight, during the argument, I felt, and you name the adjective. You don't explain, you don't go into detail, you just name the adjective. And the listener then repeats back and says, during the fight, you felt, bup, 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 bup. And then it's the listener's turn to be the speaker and say, during the fight, I felt, and name the adjectives. So we're just establishing an understanding and hopefully generating some empathy and commonality for reminding yourselves what you like about each other and having some compassion and understanding for what each other was feeling. Then the next step I call the play-by-play. It's where each person gets a chance to describe objectively what happened. And you talk about what I heard, what I saw, what I was feeling emotionally and physically. And you do things like you say, when I heard, instead of when you said, because you want to help the person be able to hear and understand rather than get defensive and feel accused and blamed. So the listener, their job is to be able to summarize and validate. And you say, okay, so what I hear you saying is, or I think what you're trying to tell me is, it sounds like your point is, and then you summarize and you say, and it makes sense to me that that made you mad. I can understand that, you know, being a half an hour, 45 minutes late to go to your parents' house for their wedding anniversary dinner, you know, it makes sense to me that that would make you mad. Then it's the listener's turn to be the speaker. And you describe concretely, objectively, what you saw, what you heard, what you felt, what was going on in the background, objectively set the scene, and describe what happened. And then the listener does the same. They summarize and validate. They find some reason to say it makes sense to me that that would make you mad. You don't have to agree. You validate. Doesn't mean you agree. It just means that you can follow the logic of how the person got to what they were feeling. And then it's time for each person to take a turn filling in the blank with what I call the trigger. Identify the trigger and tell the story behind the trigger. I give a sentence stem. You start with, and what really set me off was, and then you describe what happened, and you describe why that was a trigger, such as what really set me off was when you turned and walked out of the room, and I felt ignored. And when I was growing up, I had a little brother, and he had some special needs, disabilities, and he got all the attention, and I got ignored. So whenever I feel ignored, it's just a red flag to a bull, and it just sets me off. So because it's important to handle conflict, to process the argument, it's important to understand each other's enduring vulnerabilities. So that if I know what they are, then I can make allowances, make accommodations. If I know what steps on your toes, I can avoid stepping on your toes. Then the next step is to step on your toes. The next step is to describe what I did to make it worse. And when thus and such happened, here I escalated it by doing this. You can also kind of introduce taking responsibility for identifying what might have set you up prior to the argument. You know, I had an argument with my boss at work, or I had an argument with one of my employees at work, or whatever it was, that the traffic was horrible and miserable, and when I got home, I was hot and sweaty and blah, 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 and I was irritable. And so that made me vulnerable to lashing out. And what I did to make it worse was start name calling. And each person takes responsibility for what they did to make it worse. Then the final step is to identify what each person can do to make it better next time. And sometimes it's easier to start that by identifying what I want my partner to do to make it better next time. And it would really help next time if you would lower your voice. And it would help next time if I sat down and made eye contact. So we talk about what we can do to make it better next time, and we come to an agreement about who's going to do what. And I've mentioned in previous videos, and all agreements are tentative. All agreements are subject to review and revision, so that each time you can get a little bit closer to making it better. And the Gottmans recommend that people practice with some less hot button issues, some more minor disagreements rather than full-blown arguments, because if they say that if you practice 20 times, you get the hang of it, and then in the future, it gets to be very natural, and it's less mechanical. And you don't have to do all of the steps, but you're able to do enough of them to be able to process what happened, plan for making it better without getting back into a fight. So I hope this has been useful. I'm going to put links in the comment section for in the description section. I'm going to put links to the positive personality traits, to the negative emotions, and about a 5-page more detailed description of how the process works. So, this has been Confidence on Camera for people who want to improve their comfortability, um, their confidence, their natural presentation. Let your true personality come through naturally and spontaneously. And Confidence on Camera is an auxiliary channel for my main channel. The main channel is called The Examined Life, and that's a place for people who are interested in a civil discussion of current events and ideas and issues, from the tremendously important to the trivial but fun and interesting. My intention there is to um, begin to be able to have some impact to reducing the polarization, the animosity, and the enmity that I think is really harming our country. And then my long-term goal for the Examined Life is to become monetized so that I can donate 90% of the proceeds to Doctors Without Borders and Feeding America and Amnesty International and a World Hunger and Poverty Relief NGO called Oxfam. So I hope this has been useful for you. Let me know in the comments section about any observations and suggestions you have for how I can improve my presentation on camera. And check out my main channel. Help me get monetized. And if you'd like to start helping before the channel gets monetized, I've also got a Patreon page. So that link to my Patreon page will also be in the description of the video. Thanks for watching. This has been day 25, video 24 of my 30-day challenge to talk to the camera. If I'm at least 90% successful, which means 27 videos in 30 days, I'm going to buy a new piece of equipment for the channel. If I'm not successful, I have to donate $25 to Donald Trump's presidential campaign. The stakes are really high. I'm going to be successful. I'll tell you about the piece of equipment that I buy. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.